Israel. Learn English podcast with Safa Shelley, the world's best language school. Let's go.
שבוע טוב לכולם, שמח להיות כאן איתכם היום שוב. ברוכים הבאים לפודקאסט של שפות שלי, בית ספר לאנגלית ושפות נוספות המוביל בישראל. אני אריאל, יש לנו פרק מרתק בשבילכם היום. לפני שניכנס לזה, אבל אם פעם ראשונה שאתם מאזינים לנו, ברוכים הבאים. אנחנו היום הפודקאסט המוביל בישראל ללימוד אנגלית בזכותכם. אם אתם רוצים לשפר את ההבנה שלכם בשפה, לרכוש עוד ספרים, זה המקום הנכון. תמיד האזנה של פודקאסטים, קריאת ספרים, לשמוע למוזיקה, לראות סרטים, עוזר מאוד להבין יותר את השפה, לאמן את האוזן לשמוע למבטא שונה, וגם לרכוש עוד ספרים בצורה טבעית. אבל אם אתם רוצים לשפר את השפה המדוברת שלכם, נדרש ללמוד בצורה דינמית. יש בעצם שיטת הוראה ודרך ללמוד שפה מדוברת בצורה מהירה, לשפר את הדיבור. בזה אנחנו מתמחים גם. יש לנו כאן קורסים פרטיים אחד על אחד בשיטה המובילה בעולם, עם מורים מקצועיים מארצות הברית או מאנגליה, שגם כמובן דוברי עברית ברמה גבוהה. למה זה חשוב שאנחנו גם נדבר עברית? כי חשוב שאנחנו נבין איפה המוקשים שלכם בדיבור. זאת אומרת, יש צורה חשיבה מאוד מסוימת בשפה העברית, ולכן חשוב מאוד אנחנו יודעים בדיוק איפה טעויות, איפה שגיאות הנפוצות, איך לתת לכם שיפור מהיר, איך לתקן את זה, ושתבינו את המבנה שפה בצורה שיותר קלה ואינטואיטיבית למוח. אם אתם מעוניינים לשמוע יותר פרטים על הקורסים שלנו כאן, ומה אנחנו עושים כאן בשפות שלי, עצרו איתנו קשר ב-053-550-1976. אנחנו זמינים גם בוואטסאפ, וכמובן יכולים גם ליצור אותנו קשר במייל, info@safotsheli.co.il, או פשוט להיכנס לאתר ולכתוב לנו בדרך הוואטסאפ או פנייה באתר. Alright, אז היום בעצם אנחנו נאזין לאחד מהסיפורים הכי מדהימים שאתם תשמעו ever, נראה לי, בחיים שלכם. אני הולך להעביר את זה כרגע לגרג וג'ינה, שהולכים לעבור איתכם על זה היום. Alright, Greg and Gina, take it away.
Thank you, Ariel.
Yeah.
We have a thrilling episode for you today on the Safot podcast.
Yeah.
We're diving deep into one of those stories that seems almost unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
A true tale of survival.
Yeah.
Against impossible odds.
Against all odds. It's a story that I think captures
Well, it is.
the unimaginable chaos and resilience of World War II, especially in its final months. We're talking about 1945, when the world was on edge, just waiting for the war to end.
Right. And, that race to end the war, it led to the Manhattan Project, this incredibly secretive program in the U.S. that developed the first atomic bombs. And, I think we can all agree those bombs ushered in a terrifying new era of warfare.
Absolutely. And I think for the Americans, these bombs represented a way to force Japan's surrender and potentially save lives in the long run. But for the Japanese people, it was the start of a nightmare.
Yeah.
First in Hiroshima and then in Nagasaki.
And that's where our story really begins. Today, we're going to introduce you to Tsutomu Yamaguchi, an engineer who found himself at the heart of both of these horrific events.
Yeah, what's so fascinating about Yamaguchi's story is that it's not just about surviving these unimaginable events, not once, but twice.
Right.
It's also about his strength and determination in the face of truly horrific circumstances.
Okay, so let's go back to August 6, 1945. It's a seemingly ordinary morning in Hiroshima, a city that compared to other parts of Japan hadn't been directly touched by the war in Oka. Tsutomu Yamaguchi had been there for 3 months designing oil tankers for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries.
Ew.
He was actually getting ready to head home to Nagasaki to see his wife and baby son.
You can imagine he must have been looking forward to going home.
Oh, yeah.
But as he was walking through the city, he noticed a B-29 bomber flying unusually low.
Oh.
And then suddenly a blinding flash of light. It would have been unlike anything he'd ever seen, brighter than the sun.
I can't even begin to imagine what that must have been like.
This was Little Boy, the atomic bomb detonating about 600 meters above Hiroshima. To put it in perspective, the energy released was equal to 15,000 tons of TNT. The heat from the blast was so intense that it reached 4,000 degrees Celsius. Imagine the devastation. Buildings within a mile radius were vaporized. Thousands of people were killed instantly.
And Yamaguchi was right in the middle of it, just 3 kilometers from ground zero. That term, by the way, refers to the point on the ground directly below a nuclear detonation.
That's right. He was thrown into the air by the shock wave, his eardrums ruptured, and he suffered severe burns all over his body. In just moments, the city he'd been walking through was transformed into an inferno. Fires were burning everywhere, and the streets were filled with the injured and dying.
What a horrific experience. It's almost too painful to think about what he must have witnessed in the hours that followed. Did he ever talk about what he saw?
He did. Yaaman describes seeing charred bodies, hearing the cries of survivors, and the unforgettable image of the mushroom cloud rising above the city.
It sounds like something out of a nightmare. So what did he do? How did he even survive that?
Well, despite his injuries, he managed to find shelter and started tending to his burns. He eventually began this harrowing journey through the devastated city, just trying to find a way out. For most people, surviving something like this would be a defining moment of trauma. But for Yaaman, it was just the beginning of his ordeal.
Wait, it gets worse. I don't know how it could possibly get worse than that.
2 days after the bombing, he managed to board a train heading back home to Nagasaki. His body was broken, and his mind must have been reeling from what he had witnessed.
I can only imagine the surreal feeling of returning home, carrying both the physical and emotional scars of such an event, and then having to try to explain it to your family.
Absolutely. But despite everything, he was determined to reunite with his wife and child and try to find some sense of normalcy. So we left off with Yaaman back in Nagasaki, trying to piece his life back together after, living through an atomic bomb.
Right, and his wife must have been absolutely horrified to see him.
Of course, his wife Hisako was shocked by his condition, but Yaaman needed medical attention, and he also felt a strong sense of duty to report back to his job at Mitsubishi.
It's hard to fathom that after everything he'd been through, going back to work was one of his priorities that really speaks volumes about his character.
Yeah, and here's where Yaaman story takes another unbelievable turn. Just 3 days after the bombing of Hiroshima, on August 9th, 1945, he was back in his office recounting his experience to his supervisor.
He was actually describing the Hiroshima bombing to his boss.
Wow.
And what was his reaction? Did he even believe Yaaman?
Well, as Yaaman is describing the unimaginable destruction, the blinding flash, the sheer terror of that day, something incredible happened.
Oh, no, don't tell me.
Another blinding flash fills the room.
Oh, my gosh.
This time it's Fat Man, the second atomic bomb detonating over Nagasaki. And once again, Yaaman is caught in the blast about 3 kilometers from ground zero.
You're kidding? He was bombed twice.
Yeah.
In 3 days. What are the chances?
The odds of surviving one atomic bombing are already astronomical. To survive 2 within 3 days is almost impossible to comprehend.
That's just unbelievable. I mean, how did he survive the second one? Was he in a shelter or something?
Well, it seems the reinforced office building he was in shielded him from the worst of the blast.
Yeah.
However, he still sustained further injuries and was exposed to even more radiation.
I can't even imagine the emotional toll of experiencing not one, but 2 of the most horrific events in human history. It's mind-boggling.
It is difficult to comprehend, and you might think that these experiences would completely break a person. But here's what I find so incredible about Yaaman. He refused to be defined by these tragedies.
So what did he do? How did he move forward after all of that?
Well, he focused on his family and his recovery, and amazingly, he went back to work at Mitsubishi.
He went back to work again. I don't even know what to say.
It really is a testament to his incredible resilience and his determination to find a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos. But it wasn't always easy.
I bet. What kind of challenges did he face?
Yaaman struggled with radiation-related illnesses throughout his life, including cancer. These were the invisible scars of the bombings, a constant reminder of the destructive power he had witnessed.
It's a sobering reminder of the long-lasting effects of these weapons, even for those who survived the initial blasts.
Did he ever talk about his experience publicly?
He did. He actually became a powerful advocate for nuclear disarmament.
That's incredible. After everything he went through, he dedicated himself to preventing others from suffering the same fate.
Exactly. Imagine the courage it must have taken to relive those traumatic experiences time and time again, all in the hope of making a difference.
It's really inspiring. So what kind of work did he do for nuclear disarmament? What was his message to the world? It's amazing to think that after surviving 2 atomic bombs, Yaaman became an advocate for nuclear disarmament.
Yeah.
Talk about turning a horrific experience into something positive. That takes a lot of courage. It does. He really dedicated his life to making sure that nobody else would have to go through what he did. And his message was so powerful. He wanted the world to understand the true human cost of nuclear war, the suffering it caused, and the long-lasting impact it had on individuals and entire communities.
Did he ever speak about his motivations for becoming an advocate? I mean, it must have been incredibly difficult to relive those experiences over and over again.
He did. Yamaguchi often talked about how he felt a deep responsibility to use his unique experience to speak for those who couldn't, for those who perished in the bombings. He felt it was his duty to bear witness and make sure their stories were not forgotten.
It must have taken incredible strength and resilience to do that. Did he face any challenges or opposition in his advocacy work?
Despite the gravity of his experience, there were those who doubted his story.
Really?
It just seemed too incredible to believe, but Yamaguchi persevered. He continued to share his story, speaking at events, giving interviews, and even writing poetry about his experiences. He eventually became a prominent figure in the global anti-nuclear movement.
That's remarkable. He didn't let the doubters silence him. It sounds like his story really resonated with people around the world.
It did. His message of peace and the need to eliminate nuclear weapons. It struck a chord with many. In his later years, he even had the opportunity to speak at the United Nations, where he shared his story with a global audience.
Wow, speaking at the UN, that's incredible. He really did make a difference.
He did, and he did it all while still coping with the physical and emotional effects of the bombings. He was truly an extraordinary individual.
Absolutely. So what can we learn from the life of Tsutomu Yamaguchi? What's his legacy?
Well, Yamaguchi passed away in 2010 at the age of 93. He left behind a legacy of resilience, hope, and a commitment to peace. His story serves as a powerful reminder of the human cost of war, especially nuclear war.
It's a call to action for all of us to work towards a world where these horrific weapons are never used again.
Exactly. Yamaguchi's life teaches us that even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, the human spirit can endure and even thrive. He chose to use his pain and suffering to advocate for a better future for everyone.
His story is a testament to the power of one voice to make a difference. It's a powerful reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a more peaceful world. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the extraordinary life of Tsutomu Yamaguchi. We hope his story inspires you as much as it has inspired us.
And we hope it encourages you to think about the ways in which you can contribute to creating a world free from the threat of nuclear war.
Thank you for listening.